Fondé par les câbleaux-distributeurs pour les Canadiens.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Conservative MP Lois Brown grew up in a large family north of Toronto. She was passionate about music. She played both piano and violin all through her growing up years and in fact studied music right through university before she decided that her social nature was probably better suited to other pursuits. She started a successful business with her husband, she raised 2 daughters, and then she decided to try her hand at politics. Lois Brown joins me now to talk all about life beyond politics. Lois Brown, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Catherine.
You have a busy life as a politician, don't you? I mean, today, for example, things were all scheduled up, and then there's a vote, and it changes how the pace works. Have you become accustomed to that since first coming to Ottawa?
Well, I've always led a very busy life. So this is a different kind of busy, but I love all of the activity that goes on here in Ottawa. People ask me if I like Ottawa or do I like the constituency. I love it all.
You do, right?
I do.
Do you find any of it tricky, though? I mean, tricky to try and achieve some kind of balance in your life because you really are racing from one thing to the other, from your constituency to Ottawa, from event to event. Is that just a part of it that you enjoy, you relish, or do you find at times that you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through today?
I think the biggest challenge is always being prepared. And so when we have delegations coming to committees or when we have topics of discussion coming up, there is always a tremendous amount of reading that goes along with that. And I think that's kind of the unseen part of what our jobs entail. Right. It's the preparedness. And so it's being up at 5:30 in the morning so that you can go through that extra brief that's just come in overnight through your BlackBerry. Or it's being up until 11 o'clock at 11:30 at night, still reading in bed and saying, I have to get through this so I can, so that I can be participant in the discussion tomorrow.
Right. You're a mom.
Mm-hmm.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 girls.
Okay. And they're older.
They are.
Do you think you could have done this as a young mom with little kids?
Well, I don't know how some of our young moms do it. I know we do have several in our caucus. I think of our health minister in particular, who has a son who's, I think, about 3 now. And I think it must be a real challenge for people who have young children to be participant in their lives and to be a guide in their lives and yet to be fully engaged. So I admire anybody who undertakes.
Yeah. Having said that, I also recognize that as a parent, that duty never stops, and
right.
Your kids still want to talk to you, and you still want to see your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that must put up some interesting challenges for you to overcome.
It does. But in my situation, changed a little bit this summer. My elder daughter is married to a young man who's just finishing his PhD in electrical engineering, and Kofi has been resident at the University of Vermont, which isn't too far from
right.
Ottawa.
That's
They've come up a couple of times. But his date for his defense got changed, and although he was supposed to be done by the end of August, they've given up their apartment, so they're currently living in the basement of Mom and Dad.
Perfect. Everyone comes home.
That's right,
yeah.
they do. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what
most
parents
of the time.
do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, what were you like as a little girl?
Always busy.
Yeah.
I come from a family of 8, Catherine. There were 4 girls and 4 boys. And I was always the social convener of the household. So if things were going on in our home, I was usually the one who started it. If there was something
good and bad?
No, I was a pretty good kid.
Okay.
But the things at school, I was always a social convener at school as well. So I think I've always been busy socially. As a youngster, we were always involved in activities. My mom and dad made sure that we had an extraordinary library, so there were books available to us at any time, and of course we had our music, and that was very much a part of my formative years.
Tell me about your mom and dad and what they were like.
I'm very privileged. I have had wonderful parenting. Both of my parents professional people. My dad, a chemical engineer who ran his own business, and my mom, who, although she didn't have to work, loved her nursing. And the reputation she had at the hospital was she was a nurse's nurse. Mom and dad were good role models for us, very good role models for us. And interestingly enough, never involved politically, but always engaged in political discussion around the table. So by the time we were 9, 10 years of age, we were very conversant with government systems, with people who were in power in various places, and the good and bad about those various systems.
Did they share their opinions with you, or did they allow you to shape your own? Was there a strong sense that the family leaned one way or the other politically, or how was the dynamic on that front?
When I look back on it now, I recognize now that my parents both had very conservative leanings. My father was running his own enterprise, so there was a great deal of discussion about taxes and the detrimental impact of taxes on businesses particularly. So when I look back on it now, I would think that although they were never politically engaged and never talked about one party or another, that their leanings were very conservative. My mom was very intent on us girls particularly understanding the value of our right to vote. And so when we were 8 years of age, the year we turned 8, if there was an election, regardless provincial, federal, or municipal, my mother would take we girls with her to ensure that we saw her cast her ballot and to impress on us how important that was.
I think that's really exceptionally important. I think there's a move now to have parents take their kids to vote, especially their little girls to vote, to see what an impact that each vote can have on the democratic system. And obviously your parents were the forerunners of that.
They were.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Did they intend to have 8 kids?
Oh, yes.
They did, eh?
Oh, yes. My parents loved kids. They loved kids. And I think that we had an extraordinary opportunity. Like I said, 4 girls, 4 boys.
Yeah.
We could field our own baseball team.
Could field a lot of teams.
We had 10 acres to grow up on in the middle of King Township. It was beautiful property. My father was really one of the early commuters to Toronto.
Right.
His business was located in North Toronto. Did a lot of work in a lot of communities across Ontario particularly. So he traveled a fair bit. But growing up on 10 acres of property, when everybody around us had 10 acres of property, was really a very privileged upbringing. Did that
have any kind of impact on you as a person? Because I know for me, I also grew up in a more country-like setting where I had space as a kid. And that has made an impact on me as an adult. I feel much more at peace with myself when I live somewhere where I can be in nature easily and quickly. Did that have a similar impact on you growing up on those 10 acres and being able to just run out the door and play? Or? When I first moved away from home, the first thing I missed was the trees. I really did. And Catherine, all that to say that even though I consider it a very privileged upbringing, my mom and dad were very frugal people, and they impressed on us as kids the value of hard work and reward for your hard work. There were responsibilities within the household that we had to undertake, and you were not immune from participation. So we learned those lessons of responsibility and self-reliance and good qualities, good character qualities that Mom and Dad invested in us because they knew they were important. Tell me about the music. You obviously love music. I do love music. How did that start? Well, I think my first passion was the fiddle. Violin was actually my first passion. And I wanted desperately to take violin lessons. But we had a piano. We did not have a violin. And Mom and Dad said, no, you'll take piano lessons first. So I started on the piano when I was about 4 and a half. Really? That young? By the time I was 8, I had scholarship money from all of my festivals. And if there was a festival going on, I played in it.
And Mom and Dad ensured that all went into a separate bank account. But they allowed me to take $50 and buy myself a violin.
Oh, wow.
The teacher who I was studying with for piano was also a violinist. And so I took double duty. I took lessons one after the other. She unfortunately passed away when I was about 14.
Oh,
and
what
so
a loss for you.
The lessons had to be sidelined because there wasn't anybody else around who was a violin instructor.
Right.
So I went on with my music. I did my degree with my piano, and I will always love my piano. I currently still maintain my responsibilities as the accompanist for the York Region Police Male Chorus. And they're just a wonderful, wonderful group of people who love to sing and love to do good things in our community. So we do fundraising concerts for charities.
Right.
And do a lot of concerts for senior citizens' homes or for shut-ins in a lot of places.
And I understand that there's actually, that they at least even travel internationally at times to other things. Do you, are you?
I've traveled with them.
Really?
I've traveled with them to Great Britain.
You are busy.
We did a concert tour in 2005 before I was elected, and we spent 3 weeks in Great Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales. And it was a wonderful opportunity to take the message of the York Regional Police, and our motto is in harmony with the community, and to just take our talents to another place and do some good work there.
Do you ever regret not continuing with the violin? Is it something you'd pick up again?
Well, I have a lovely violin that my mom and dad gave me. And there's a little story to that, Catherine. My mother showed up one day at my home and said, "Lois, don't ask me any questions. We just want you to have this." And it was a lovely violin. At the time, I was very busy, and so I sort of tucked it away for a while. But I eventually started some fiddle lessons because I love Celtic music.
Yeah.
I love the Scottish music particularly, which is funny because I have Irish in my background. But I love the Celtic music. And I pulled out the violin one day when I met a fellow by the name of Philip Howes, who lives in Markham. And I started doing some lessons with him. And he started to play this violin and asked me where I got it. Well, I told him the story, that my mom had brought this violin to me. 2 weeks after she gave it to me, my mom was killed by an impaired driver. Oh. And my father really hadn't paid any attention to it, so he didn't know what the story was. But I have this magnificent violin. It is not a Stradivarius, but it has, in the hands of a master, an absolutely marvelous sound.
Do you still play it?
Occasionally. Not as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
Obviously, the time is limited. Mm-hmm. I do have a piano here in my apartment in Ottawa, and there are many nights that I just like to go home and play just because it's good for the soul.
Right.
But not as much time as I would like.
So tell me about, you could have done a career in music. I'm sure you could have made that your profession. Why did you choose a different path?
Because I learned very soon into my music degree that although I love my music, and although music it's a wonderful way to engage with other people in certain forums, the necessity to spend an extraordinary amount of time practicing. And I did a performer's degree, so if you're going to go into performance, it means that you are going to spend an extraordinary number of hours, you and your instrument. But I think I learned very early that I was a much more social person, and I needed that interaction with people. I have a passion for people, and I have a passion to assist people, and somehow that wasn't going to be realized through just my work with my piano. Was that a difficult realization for you? I don't think so. I think it was kind of an awakening in my life, because my music had been so much a part of my upbringing and so much of a part of the discipline of my life that until I really became a young adult and started to explore other areas of interest for myself, I don't know that it was something that I'd really thought about prior to that. But it was kind of an awakening for me, and I still use my music. I will always love my music, and I will always play, but I use it in a different way. So you've put aside music. You're a young woman. You've put aside music in terms of a career option, and you're choosing where to go next. What did you decide? Well, my husband and I have our own business. We assist companies with their return to work programs, Most companies don't have any idea what their workers' compensation costs really are, and the impact of an injury on the job, both to the injured worker, which can be catastrophic in many ways, but also to the bottom line of that employer, can be devastating. And we have been in companies where 2 or 3 of those meant the difference between profitability and going out of business. And so we've helped many, many companies across Canada stay in business and retain the value that they have invested in their employee, and really help the employee reintegrate back into the workforce with either the same job or maybe a slightly different job. But it's been a very rewarding opportunity for us, and one that we've been tremendously successful in.
Are you better at being your own business person than you would be working for someone else, do you think?
I've done both. I have worked for other people, but I think that my creativity and my energy level are very nicely suited to being in business for myself, and it's been a very good opportunity for us. My husband still carries on the business now. I'm really out of the business, but I keep an eye on it because it really is my long-term retirement plan, and we hope that we could keep that going for a long time.
What's it like to work with your husband every day?
I think everybody who does that has a different experience, and I think it depends on the responsibilities that you have. My social ability, he's really the expert in his area. Right. He did all pre-med courses, so he understands the physiology. He can talk the language of the medical doctors that we have to interact with. My area of creativity and marketing, we've undertaken very separate responsibilities within the organization, and so we work well together.
How did you meet him?
Oh, that's a story. I have always, with my music, been participant in bands or music groups. And when I was in high school, I was involved in a folk singing group. That dates me, doesn't it?
No, it
I was
doesn't.
involved in a folk singing group, and my husband was one of our contacts who set up several of our gigs, and so that's how we met.
That's really great. Mm-hmm. Was it love at first sight?
No, actually, I was dating somebody else. He was dating somebody else. We exchanged correspondence for a while over some pieces of music that he was looking for, and we started to talk. And
it's nice to share that common bond too, though. I mean, that musical link too, because it's obviously such an integral part of your life, remains such an integral part of your life.
Absolutely. And he's a trained singer, so as a completely other part of his life.
Boy, you guys must be great at parties.
We have fun.
I bet. So, you know, you have this business that you obviously really enjoy, and a partnership with your husband that's successful both personally and professionally. Why decide to shake it up and run for office?
Catherine, when I left home to go to school, I figured that I needed to find out what my political roots were, because Mom and Dad have exposed us to all of this discussion to find out where I fit within that, you know, that system. And here was my great epiphany. After my investigation, I discovered that typically liberal philosophy is that government can spend your money better than you can. Typically conservative philosophy is that individuals can make wise decisions with their money, and it goes into the economy, and that's what keeps our economy going. And I thought, I'm a student working hard to put myself through school. Mom and Dad taught me how to make good decisions, therefore I must be a conservative. So that was my great epiphany. I just got involved. I contacted the local riding association. I've never been a shrinking violet. and so I just discovered how to become engaged. And
you wanted to be politically engaged.
I did. I wanted to be politically engaged. So there isn't an election, municipally, provincially, or federally, that I haven't been participant in. And I started off, I licked stamps, I stuffed envelopes, I knocked on doors, did lit walks for lots of candidates. But it was in 1997 actually that I was pursued by the local riding association to be their candidate for the Progressive Conservatives in what was then York North. I went through that personal investigation. But I really felt it wasn't quite the right time in my life. My girls were entering their teens. I did not want to entertain being away from my daughters.
Yeah.
Our business was growing and doing very well. And as a completely other part of our life, we had committed to an organization called AFS Interculture Canada to be a host family for students from overseas. And we were enjoying that immensely. So for all of those reasons, I knew it wasn't the right time in my life. But I had worked at Queen's Park for several years for one of the cabinet ministers, and I saw my time there after that as really an apprenticeship. So I had the experience of the legislative part of it, helping to see how legislation is formulated, how it comes out of a policy, what it's doing as it goes through the legislature, and then how it works itself out in society. And I also came at it from the political involvement, having been engaged in the political realm since I was a teenager. And so, although 1997 wasn't the right time for me, I knew that there would be a time in my future when I would seek elected office.
How did your family feel about it?
Very positive, very encouraging, and fully supportive.
What has been the most enjoyable aspect of becoming an MP? Because I'm sure there have been a lot of surprises, good and bad, along the way. What's been the most enjoyable part?
When I said earlier, people ask me if I like Ottawa or the constituency. I would say that the deepest satisfaction that I have is from being able to assist a constituent through a problem to resolution. I know as parliamentarians, we can't resolve all of the problems. Some of them are interjurisdictional. Some of them are something that has been created by the constituent and the problem needs other assistance to resolve, maybe a legal input. But there are many times that we can at least direct them in the right place. When people are coming to my office as a member of Parliament, I always look on the problem that I am their last resort, that they really do not know where to turn. By the time they come to their Member of Parliament, they're at the end of their rope. I will never turn a person away from my office without giving them some assistance or guidance, helping them get connected with whomever it is that they need to connect with. I had a woman call me about cats, feral cats, causing a problem in her garden. And as a Member of Parliament, that doesn't fall within federal jurisdiction. But she was so distraught. The right thing to do is to pick up the phone and say, let me get your councillor, your town councillor on the line, and let's get a meeting for you with the town councillor. So there is tremendous sense of satisfaction, personal reward, when I know that I have helped a person resolve a problem regardless of the jurisdiction. When I'm here in Ottawa, I would say one of the most tremendous parts of the job here is the camaraderie that has been developed. And it's not just amongst people of our own party, although there's tremendous camaraderie there, but to engage with people who are from the opposite side of the floor.
Is that an easy thing to do?
Not always, because I don't see eye to eye with them politically, but they are still people, and they still have opinions, and oftentimes there are good relationships that grow across the floor, some people who I've really enjoyed working with.
You're a Penpal, I understand. Is that right? Are you still doing some Penpal work, or do you do any Penpal work with people, or is it mainly your work welcoming students into your home that you were doing for?
Well, the organization AFS, it's not an exchange program where you send your child, I send mine back.
Okay.
It costs for the sending family to send their child. There's an organization that has to maintain its own credibility. There are licenses, and there are insurance, things that need to be taken care of. In some places, some school boards require a tuition fee to be paid. Now, York Region used to have an agreement with AFS that for every student that went, a student could come in, because there are costs. As a host family, there is no remuneration to the host family. You just do it because you love kids. We've hosted 5.
Have you really? Full years?
Each one lived with us for a full year.
Wow.
They do a full year of high school at a local high school.
Yeah.
So in our case, it was Huron Heights High School. We've had extraordinary young women in our home. And by the time they've lived with you for a year, they truly are your girls. We only had girls because we didn't think it was fair to introduce a teenage boy into our daughter's bathroom.
Sure.
So we So we only had girls, but we had a wonderful time with every one of them, and we still maintain the relationship. 2 of the girls now are moms.
Oh, that's so great.
One daughter, I call her my daughter, is expecting her second in December. So we keep in close contact with each of them, and our girls are fast friends.
Are you glad you ran? Are you glad you're doing this?
Absolutely. I can't think of anything else that I would do that would give me so much personal reward, but so much opportunity to serve, because it really is about service.
Thank you so much, Lois Brown, for being here today. It's just been a real pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you.
CPAC is ceremony. CPAC, real-time politics.
How will you mark Remembrance Day?
By watching Outburst, the Remembrance Day edition. Join me, Glenn McGuinness, along with Heather Seaman and Puneet Berge, as we talk to MPs and citizens alike about war and remembrance.
I kind of get emotional a bit. The boys who didn't return.
That's Outburst, the Remembrance Day edition. See it on CPAC. Politics in action.
A ceremonial march, a series of impassioned statements.
Canadians need and deserve their government support.
A heated Q&A.
Where is the coherence in the government strategy?
That, Mr. Speaker, is truly out of touch.
A debate over bills and motions.
How can they defend borrowing $500 million they don't have?
Just another day at the office. House of Commons. See it on CPAC.
A cynic is a man who, when he smells the flowers, looks for a coffin.
The challenges our country faces are immense.
It takes time to build consensus.
It's the program that's never at a loss for words. Podium. See it on CPAC.
On the next Rockburn Presents.
Like every child needs to have the champion on their side to make them, to help them to grow. And, well, of course, none of us did.
Join me, Ken Rockburn, for Rockburn Presents, only on CPAC.
It's a daily snapshot of happenings both outside and inside Parliament. Join Peter Van Dusen and Martin Stringer for a close-up look at the biggest stories of the day. Get the full picture on Primetime Politics, only on CPAC.
Oh mon Dieu, tu as vu ça? Je suis content qu'il soit à 1,5 milles au large. Hé les gars, foutez le camp, ce navire est bourré d'explosifs. Allez, oh non! Allez-vous-en tous vite! Retournez dans la... Amenez ces enfants loin d'ici, ce navire va exploser! Oh, Monsieur Coleman! Harry, il faut que tout le monde s'en aille, le navire va sauter! Quoi? Faut pas que vous restiez là, ça va sauter! Navire de munitions en feu! Stoppez le train! Digne de Dieu!
Coleman! On n'a plus de temps!
Le train est en route vers le quai! Je dois les avertir!
Allez, viens, Vince! Dépêche-toi!
Il doit y avoir 700 personnes à bord! Il faut que j'arrête ce train! Répondez, nom de Dieu!
Halifax plus ravagé, 9000 blessés, 2000 morts. Parmi eux, le télégraphiste Vince Coleman.
C'est un aperçu quotidien de ce qui se passe tant à l'intérieur qu'en dehors du Parlement. Prenez rendez-vous avec Pierre Donnet et moi, Daniel Young, pour un examen détaillé des nouvelles